If you want to go beyond the rink and into the dressing room, there's only one place to be, the Hockeyverse, with your hosts, Michael Tracos and Johnny Legend.
All right, let's get right into this. Got to get this off my chest. A lot of people are blaming Justin Hall after the Leafs lost Game 5 to the Lightning 4-2. He's become Toronto's new whipping boy. The new Larry Murphy of the Leafs, if you will. And I get it. Toronto's being outscored 13-2 when Hall is on the ice. 13-2. In Game 4, he was on the ice. Forget this, 3 of Tampa's goals. So far in the postseason, he's a league worst -7. Plus, it's not like there aren't any other options. You've got Timothy Liljegren up in the press box, who's a first rounder and has a lot more upside than Hall. You've also got Eric Gustafsson up there too, who the Leafs acquired at the deadline specifically for the playoffs. So yeah, I get it. I hear you. Hall probably shouldn't be in the lineup anymore. But Hall isn't why the Leafs lost Game 5. He's not the reason why Tampa has life right now. He's not. If you're blaming a D who played the least amount of minutes, then you're basically excusing the forwards who play the most and earn the most. In order for the Leafs to win the series, and they can still win the series, their stars have to be the ones delivering the knockout blow. It's nothing new. In 10 potential series-clinching games since 2018, yeah, we're going back, Matthews, Marner, and Nylander have combined for just 3 goals. And when the Leafs have a team on the ropes, the big guns have continually shot blanks. That's a disturbing trend. We'll see if it continues in Game 6 in what I'm calling now a must-win game for the Leafs. But if I'm Sheldon Keefe, I'm less worried about Hall and more worried about what I may get out of my star players. With that and more on today's episode of The Hockeyverse.
You just found the world's latest and greatest sports, hockey, and entertainment podcast. This is The Hockeyverse. On today's episode, we recap Game 5 between the Leafs and Lightning, and we look ahead to what's looking like a must-win Game 6 in Tampa. We're also joined by Toronto Sun sports columnist Steve Simmons, who wrote about Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and what's at stake if the Leafs end up blowing another 3-1 series lead. By the way, check our show notes for timestamps if you want to fast forward to your favorite part. Also, if you want to be on a future episode, email your question to heyhockeyverse@gmail.com. Can we get a cinder block and throw a Leaf jersey on it? It can block shots like Justin Hall. Let's go.
Cinder block, not a pylon, not a...
Hey, a cinder block, at least maybe we'll get a deflection, something.
So where do you put the blame now?
I don't put the blame on Justin Hall because Justin Hall's Justin Hall, right?
Kind of knew what you're getting.
Yeah,
right?
That's like putting the blame on a thief who stole something. You know what I mean?
I see the analogy.
Yeah.
I see it. It's your bottom pairing. It's Hall and Giordano. In all likelihood, when Anaheim won the Cup with Niedermayer and Pronger, those guys played basically every other shift. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have faith in Hall, you don't have faith in Giordano, who's looking a little like a 40-year-old who's gone through the ringer now, and those miles are starting to add up. Don't play them as much.
Oh, dude, he just got a bunch of miles put on him last night by Pat Maroon.
Yeah, it was a tough game for him physically, just because he got hammered from behind. But it was a tough game for the Leafs. Like that was the one where you're saying, okay, you could have changed the narrative all around with the win in Game 5. It would have been Leafs didn't just advance past the first round, but they did it in 5 games, which would have made you happy.
Yeah, it would have made me very happy.
Because you've been calling the Leafs in 5, which, let's say it now, you were wrong on.
Yeah.
And you had that crowd. Like, there was a buzz in the city. Really, there was a buzz in the whole province going into this game yesterday. Even the TNT panel in the States, they seemed pumped for it. The game was on U.S. television. It was probably the highest rated game, I'm guessing, going into this playoffs. It was right there for the taking. After one period, the score was 1-1. We talked after that first period. Both of us seemed pretty optimistic that the Leafs were in the driver's seat, where they could just put the pedal down and cruise on out, get to round 2. You've got a banged-up Bruins team probably waiting there. We'll see if they can close out the Panthers right now. And it feels like right now, going into game 6, and this is what I'm feeling going onto Twitter, just talking to friends and stuff. You gave Tampa Bay life where they shouldn't have life.
That is a problem. There's a couple things. Like, number one, Justin Hall aside, where did Willie Nylander learn these new tricks?
Which tricks are you talking about?
The vanishing trick.
Well,
Like, he'll go on the ice.
Because critics would say he's always had that trick.
Yeah, but he will go on the ice and he will look absolutely amazing for 1/3 of a shift, and then you don't see him again.
Dude, have you been paying attention to William Nylander's career?
But it's the playoffs, guy. Like, he could.
So
he has the
that's
talent. He has the talent and the skill to change the game, man.
And I wrote about Nylander in that book that I wrote, the one behind me here. And
the next one's by Michael Trakos, how McDavid and Matthews and a group of young guns took over the NHL, available on Amazon.ca.
Listen, William Nylander going into that draft, and there was the draft that Draisaitl should have went number 1. I think he ended up going, number 3. Aaron Ekblad went 1. Reinhart went 2. Nylander going into that draft was considered the most skilled player available. The reason why he didn't go 1, why he didn't go number 2, why he wasn't 3, why Toronto was even iffy on taking him was what you just described. Mm-hmm. This goes back to his minor hockey days where the guy could skate like he always skates. He's got the skill to put the puck in wherever he wants. He can dangle. He can do whatever he can out there. What he doesn't do is back check. What he doesn't do is finish a check. And what he doesn't do is play hard from the moment the puck is dropped to the buzzer.
You know what? I can live without back checking. I can live without going into the corners, but I can't live without, you know what I mean? At least offensive all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Just don't hide. It's like he's hiding out there.
What kills you is that Edmonton's got a guy in Zach Hyman where there was a debate going on when Hyman was a UFA as to should they trade Nylander and re-sign Hyman or let Hyman walk and keep Nylander for what's still looking like a pretty good value contract at 6.9.
Yeah, but is it a good value if he...
No, I'm just saying, there was that debate, and there was... a lot of people were on the side of, hey, let Willie walk. He might end up becoming a 40, 50 goal scorer, and we might be, kicking ourselves for this, but at least with Hyman, you've got a guy that you're just talking about right now. Every team wants in the playoffs.
Yeah, Hyman is going to be exactly the same. First game of the season in preseason and game 7 in the playoffs. He's going to be exactly the same player. You know exactly what you're going to get.
I don't know what I'm going to get. Never mind Nylander. I don't know what I'm going to get at Austin Matthews.
Oh, jeez.
Or Mitch Marner or John Tavares going into game 6.
Marner had a beautiful break. That was a beautiful play on that breakaway, and he shot it right in his breadbasket.
Well, that goes back to Andrei Vasilevsky has opened his eyes and wakened from the slumber that he was under for the last 4 games.
That worries me.
He was good on game 5.
That worries me. And you know what? You could see, I looked at him, I even said because I was watching it with my little guy, and they showed Vasilevsky during the national anthems, and he said, "Who's that?" I said, "That's their goalie," and he looked dialed in.
Yeah, even after that breakaway, I don't think he was blinking. They kept putting the camera on him, and I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, you could see it. You could see it in him.
I got flashes of Carey Price when the Leafs were up 3-1, and all of a sudden, Carey Price decided to be all-world again.
Yeah, and we have the Leafs flu. As soon as they lose, we get sick, and we're like, oh, here we go again.
So the pressure has shifted in my mind. Toronto had Tampa on the ropes. Now you've kind of opened that window a little. You've given them life. You're going into game 6 in Tampa Bay. There's all this talk about should Justin Hall be in the lineup? Do you put Michael Bunting back in? We're going to have Steve Simmons on later. We're going to ask him about the lineup. I've heard some talk about possibly having 7D and 11 forwards. This isn't the conversation that you really want to be having when you're up 3-2 in a series where you've got to put your foot on the throat of the other team, and yet it feels like Toronto's now in second-guess mode.
Yeah. And you know what? If you put in Michael Bunting last night, what if he pulled his crap, right? Like he's gonna be under a microscope.
I think you put him in for game 6 now.
Have to.
I don't know what other changes you make. I'm almost leaning towards you don't take Justin Hall out of the lineup because I can't remember the last time I saw Timothy Liljegren play a hockey game. And now you're going to throw him in to the biggest game of the year in Game 6 in enemy territory. And let's not forget, Liljegren wasn't a good playoff performer when the Leafs lost to Tampa or to Montreal the year before that.
Yeah, but you could throw him in. He could be jacked up. He could be coming out like a...
Jacked up? It's Liljegren. What's he going to do?
But you never know, right?
Well, here's some stats for you on Liljegren. First, here's some stats on Hall. Okay, so Hall ranks second on the Maple Leafs in shorthanded ice time in the postseason. That's why he is in the lineup these days.
Well, how many power play goals does...
Okay, I'm going to get
Tampa's like 40% of the power play.
The Lightning have scored 5 power play goals in 19 opportunities. So, yeah, he's your number one penalty killer, or one of them. And, yeah, your penalty kill sucks.
Yeah.
What am I missing here? Meanwhile, Liljegren put up 18 points this year, led the Leafs in goals, more goals than Riley.
Leafs defense.
Sorry, led the Leafs defense in goals, and was a plus 24 in 67 games.
That sounds like a no-brainer to me.
What I like about Liljegren is that if you got him with Giordano, it's that perfect mix of puck mover with stay-at-home guy. And you've got that with Riley and Shen, and you see how that's been working out. With Giordano and Hall right now, you've got two guys who, I see Hall pinching in, and I'm going, why is he pinching?
Oh, my God.
Why is he carrying the puck?
When I see him anywhere near the face-off circles, I just start sweating.
But it goes back to, I don't have it in front of me, but I can't remember. Liljegren may not have played since like February or March, it feels like right now. And that's just a lot of time to be sitting and not playing. So.
Yeah, I don't think he hasn't played since Shen came back from his kid being born, right?
I love the pictures or the video of Bunting, though, up in the press box, sitting next to Simmons and Muzzin and Gustafsson. And Bunting looked like he was ready to just jump off like the gondola there and get right on the
he
ice.
couldn't sit still.
Oh, boy. Like, the guy is chomping at the bit, which kind of goes back to what you're saying. And, you got a guy who's jacked up, and, he's going to be... His game is predicated on just pissing off the opposition and getting under the skin. Like, he's a shift disturber, right? Mm-hmm. Classic. That could cut both ways.
Well, it did cut the other way.
Yeah. So, I don't know. And now you got Maroon kind of getting into the dirty stuff as well. Game 6 is going to be a rough one. And the start's going to be huge for the Leafs. Can they weather that initial Tampa Bay storm? And, can Samsonov outplay Vasilevsky? And I just don't. Right now, I'm thinking this is going Game 7.
And how much, when you saw Muzzin sitting up there, did you wish Muzzin was on the ice?
Which Muzzin?
Jake Muzzin.
No, which Muzzin, though? Muzzin from before the concussion?
Yeah, well, Muzzin before he broke his neck, yeah.
Because he wasn't very good when he was playing lately.
Yeah, but, I mean, the Muzzin that we got, other than take Hall out, put Muzzin in?
Yeah.
Well, Muzzin with a broken neck might be still better than Hall.
Right now, I like what I'm getting out of the top forward Leafs defense. Yeah. I think McCabe has finally found his rhythm.
Last night he had a good game.
Good hits on Hagel, a good hit on Point, I think it was. Mm-hmm. That's the Jake McCabe where you're going, okay, that's why the Leafs got him. Luke Shen has just been a rock back there. Morgan Riley, again. Is this guy now the best defenseman in the playoffs?
Well, they said first Leaf defenseman to score in 3 straight games since Turnbull, right?
He's been their best player, I think, from start to finish in this series.
Front and back, yeah.
Yeah. So you got him going. Brody, you don't notice him. That's when Brody's his best.
Yeah.
If I don't say to myself, oh, well, Brody did something there, that means Brody's doing good.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not making a mistake.
Yeah.
Right?
He's never going to wow you and be flashy or anything like that. So, yeah, it's just that bottom pair. And you think it's not a big deal because they don't play a whole lot of minutes, but a bunch of nobody's scoring against Toronto right now.
Yeah, if you play 3 minutes and they score 2 goals, that's still bad. Doesn't matter how few minutes you play. And do you think that they're going to be without Giordano tonight after that horrific hit by Maroon? What a goon that guy is, eh?
So I'm in the minority here. I don't think it was a 5-minute major.
No?
I think the ref actually made the right call.
Yeah, but if you look at that, so what did Kyle Clifford get suspended for?
Same hit.
Less of a hit. It was more of an angle, and he was kind of skating by him. He didn't drill him straight into the boards, if you watch it.
So the way I saw it is Giordano saw Maroon coming. He kind of turns on him, and he's just trying to like rag the puck and just kill off the extra time. And Maroon, I don't think he doesn't hit him like where Giordano's like 5 or 7 feet away from the boards. He kind of rides him into the boards from behind.
But isn't the rule numbers? And rule
Listen,
no
I'm
numbers?
the minority here.
Like, is that not a hearing?
I don't think it's going to be a hearing. And
is that worse than the Cale Makar hit?
I didn't think the Cale Makar hit was that bad.
And he got a game.
Yeah. So I don't know.
And Pat Maroon's Pat Maroon, not Cale Makar. If Cale Makar gets a game for that.
Like the argument is you hit the guy in the numbers and you drove him in and he goes down hard. I thought 2 minutes boarding was fine. Or rough. What was it, roughing?
It was roughing. He didn't get a penalty on the hit.
So, I guess, if that's a 5-minute major, maybe we're talking about a different outcome here.
And you know what? If it wasn't for the last year on Clifford and even the bunting, we wouldn't even be probably talking about that hit.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about the officials this playoffs.
Oh,
way too much.
Horrible.
They are always horrible in the playoffs because no one knows what a penalty is come regular season versus the playoffs. But this time it feels like it's
very inconsistent. And that trip on Marner in the Tampa end,
yeah,
it looked like he got a little slew foot. He went like feet up in the air, flat on his back. How do you not?
It's playoff hockey, man.
I know, but then they call the little tacky stuff.
Yeah, I get you. The haul on Kucherov was dangerous,
and it wasn't even
sticks a stick on his skates there. That was a legit penalty. Like, I don't know. I get it. It's tough. You want to let them play. You want to get physical, and at the same time, you're tossing guys for things that are maybe aren't even that bad. So I don't know. I don't know how to treat it anymore, to be honest.
One thing I noticed too, Tampa Bay went to all those cups in a row. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they lost the first 2 they went to. Then they won 2 in a row.
What do you mean they lost the first 2 they went to?
So they didn't make it they didn't win the cup.
Who? Tampa?
In the playoffs. And then they won 2. So the 2 years before they won the 2, they didn't win the cup, but they went to the playoffs.
They went to the playoffs. They didn't go to the final.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Just the playoffs.
Yeah.
Then they got Luke Shen, won 2 cups, lost Luke Shen, haven't won since.
You think Luke Shen is the reason?
You think Luke Shen is the lucky charm?
I do not.
No?
I don't know where that's coming from.
Just a coinky dink.
No.
Just a coinky dink.
You know what the constant is? It's a guy named Andrei Vasilevsky.
Yeah.
And I get you. Like, I don't know.
The missing piece.
Luke Shen, I covered all 3 of those finals. I didn't notice Luke Shen on all of them. Let's be honest.
But you know what? You're not supposed to notice Luke Shen. Is that a problem that we are? Or do we just notice it because we're in the center of the Hockeyverse?
I think you're noticing Luke Shen because he's playing an important role for the Leafs. Mm-hmm. And in Tampa, he wasn't your top 4 defenseman. He was your bottom. He was Justin Hall in Tampa.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about before the playoffs even started, should Justin Hall even be in the lineup?
Now we're talking about Justin Hall? Yeah. Justin Hall, listen, Sheldon Keefe and Justin Hall are tied at the hip right now. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to like what we keep saying is he needs a guy who's going to kill penalties. Fine, the penalty kill isn't good enough. But who do you put on that PK that is going to do the job?
Yeah.
Like you had Jake Muzzin before. I don't know. It's a tough one. I think when the Leafs lose, it's easy to kind of blame the guys who are at the loss, but I'm going to keep going back to what I said off the intro, is that you've got a team on the ropes. Mm-hmm. And until that end of the third period where Toronto Stars decided to play like star players, I didn't see a whole lot of pushback from Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner or William Nylander or John Tavares. Go down the list. Those same guys that were part of the come-from-behind win in Game 4 weren't there in Game 5.
I've always said that. Why don't you play the last 2 minutes or the first 2 minutes like you play the last 2 minutes?
They're a great team when they're desperate.
It would change the game. If you played, if they go Game 6 and they play the first 4 minutes like they played that last 4 minutes, it's a different game.
Hey, listen, man, you need your stars to deliver the knockout blow. And here's the other thing that was kind of surprising is to start the game, and for most of the game, you had Marner away from Matthews. What was the logic there? So you had Matthews with Matthew Nyes and Cal Youngkrook as a line, and then you had Tavares with Marner and William Nylander. And part of that is probably because you're not getting enough 5-on-5 out of the Tavares-Nylander line, and you're saying, okay, well, Marner is the guy that could, spur them on to something better. But it didn't work.
Who cares about evening ice time? Make a super line. Build a lead.
So what would your line be? Your ideal line? If you're going into Game 6, you're starting it out. Who are you putting on for the drop of the puck?
It's got to be Matthews and Marner, right?
Yeah, do you go super line? You throw in O'Reilly, or you throw in Tavares with him?
I throw on an O'Reilly, or maybe you can wake up Nylander with putting him on that line. Say, listen, I'm going to put you on this line. We're going to try it. You better play.
Yeah, I think they need to get a lead. Game 6 feels like the kind of game where now that Vasilevsky is back to being Vasilevsky, that you could see him just completely just stonewalling the Leafs.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like a shutout win, or he lets in with just one goal, and it's lights out. We're back to Game 7, and everyone's kind of clutching their sticks as if they're basically shaking going into war.
That's the worry. And their 3 wins, Samsonov is the one that won those games.
Yeah, and he didn't look good last night in Game 5.
No, not as good as he has. Have you been watching it since I mentioned it? How early he's going down?
Yeah, the goal that I don't even know how to say the guy's name, Isamont or whatever, scored.
Yeah. Oh, that one
he
right
blows by Hall and he throws it like almost 5-hole. You got to stop that.
And it wasn't even a hard shot. It was like he was just trying to flip it on net.
Yeah, first playoff goal. All right, let's move on from the Leafs here. The Jets now are eliminated, and their head coach Rick Bowness, first year with the Jets, had some harsh words about his team's lack of pushback, particularly from the best players. Sound familiar? Like we're not getting that pushback from the Leafs, but good on him for pointing the finger at. He didn't name names, but he said our best players weren't the best players, and I'm surprised at the lack of pushback. He said it goes back to February when the Jets were at one time leading the Central Division, and since then it's been kind of a team. Whenever they get challenged, they just can't seem to punch back or whatever, and it's been an ongoing issue even before Bowness got there as the head coach last summer.
Yeah, Paul Maurice walked away.
Then they stripped Blake Wheeler of the captaincy. Something is obviously wrong in that dressing room, and a lot of the blame now is going towards those core players. So you look at it, and I was looking at what options they have. So Pierre-Luc Dubois, who they traded and they got from Columbus in exchange for Patrick Laine. He's an RFA this summer. And there's a lot of talk that he wants to play for Montreal. He's a Quebec-born guy. So there's one option. You could ship him off and get something still of value for it because this guy's a hell of a power forward. The other one
when he wants to be.
So can you guess how much Mark Scheifele makes?
What does Mark Scheifele make? $9 million?
You would think, right? He makes 6.125.
Really?
For another year. So he's in the final year of his contract. That's 6 and change. Nick Ehlers, $6 million. Even Blake Wheeler at 8.25. He's going to be a UFA at the end of next year. So this Jets team is going to be a drastically different team, I think. And we'll see if Kevin Cheveldayoff has the cojones to make some change, because he's one of those guys that he stays with things. You don't see a whole lot of change in Winnipeg. Paul Maurice coached there forever. It seemed like they don't make many big changes. The Laine trade was really the biggest kind of wow, blockbuster move that they've made in the last little while. But, it just goes to show you, like, they don't get into the first round. You're looking at that roster and you're going, wow, it's a hell of a roster. They got a goalie in Connor Hellebuck. They got a Norris Trophy candidate this year and Josh Morrissey. But they don't get into the first round, and the coach is really pointing the finger at the star players. Could we see something similar happen in Toronto where if they don't get out of this first round, fine, Kyle Dubas is probably going to get some heat. Sheldon Keefe definitely is going to get some heat. But how much heat is going to go towards, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, and some of these star guys who, if like I said, if Toronto doesn't get out.
It's hard, though, to point a finger at Marner when he's pretty much leading the playoffs in scoring, right? And Matthews isn't playing that bad. Like I think he's playing better than he has in the last 3 playoffs. Do you agree? He looks like he's working harder. He's playing harder. He's playing a little. He threw a big hit, and when Maroon hit Giordano, it was Matthews that went after Maroon.
Ooh, I'm sure Maroon was freaking.
Oh, he was shaking in his boots. But still, it's the effort, right?
Yeah, they're playing good. At the same time, who is the third highest player in the NHL right now?
Is that Matthews?
It's Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
Is he playing like the third highest player or paid player in the NHL right now?
Not right now, but is he the highest? Is he playing the best out of the highest paid players in the playoffs right now?
Is he better than McDavid?
He's not. Nobody's better than McDavid.
Is he playing better than McKinnon? Maybe. McKinnon's won a cup.
Yeah.
I'll cut him some slack.
Yeah. That's your get out of jail free card, right?
I get what you're saying. When you go down the list of who's playing well for Toronto, Marner's up there with Riley, and Matthews is up there. But it's a different level when you're getting that much money and when you're dedicating that much salary of the team. Like, we're talking 50% of the salary is tied up in 4 players.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get that same value back.
Well, that's always been the rub, right? Is trying to build out the bottom half of the lineup.
Well, yeah, and the rub is if you're going to pay these guys 50% of your salary, then they got to be 50% of the offense. And then when you're looking at the game, you're going to have to say, well, these guys were not just the best players, but they were so far above and beyond that you don't care that you've got Noel Chari or whoever on the third line, and you don't care that it's a fourth line of Sam Lafferty, because the top dogs are getting everything.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where Ryan O'Reilly comes in, right? Then you see the star trying the hardest. It makes everybody else try harder. Not that you need to tell professional hockey players to try harder, but it certainly looks like you do, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just the goalposts change, I think, when you're paying these guys that much money and when you're expecting that much. And we've seen it out of Matthews. The guy's a 60-goal scorer. Fine, he gets a goal last night, but where were you for the first period? Where were you for the second period?
That's the thing. They got to come out.
You want to be up there with the McDavid. You want to change this. You want to be what Ovechkin was to Washington. You want to change narratives. You want to build a legacy. You got to be the guy, not just a contributor, but you got to be leading the charge.
Yeah, and that's why he wasn't made the captain.
Wow, we'll see.
He will be one day.
Yeah,
he'll be a captain one day.
I'm not dumping on him, but I'm just saying, like, this is the time to show up.
This is where you earn your money. You earn your money in the playoffs, man. You don't earn your money with a Rocket Richard trophy.
Yeah,
you earn your money with a Stanley Cup.
Speaking of not earning their money, how surprised are you? The Rangers now, 1 game away from elimination. They got shut out 4-0 in Game 5 to the Devils. So the Devils are up 3-2. You acquire Patrick Kane. You acquire Vladimir Tarasenko. You've got an offense with Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, Panarin, a number 1 overall pick in Lafreniere, a number 2 overall pick in Capo Caco, and you're getting shut out, and you're we're now on the ropes, might get eliminated by the Devils, who we're going to be too young. They don't even have a goalie. How are they doing this? If the Rangers go out in the first round, is that the biggest disappointment?
Well, it would be, because if the Rangers go out, we both picked the Rangers in our bracket.
I have 7 Rangers in my pool.
Oh, geez, you're done.
I picked the Rangers to win the Cup, I think, this year.
You picked Rangers Edmonton in the final.
Yeah, well, it's not over yet. We'll see. All right, so I'm getting a lot of hate from that, and
I got a lot of hate from my Game 5. I wish that came true, just so I could make everybody eat it.
Yeah, well, maybe it's time now to go to Twitter and see what people are saying about yours truly and Hockeyverse.
Tweets from the half-twits?
There we go.
All right, so I got one for you. Sun to Zoo. LOL. Tracos is so trash and constantly wrong about things regarding the Leafs.
Yeah, welcome to the club. All right, and this is in regards to my question as to where was this Riley during the regular season? Because Riley is definitely a different player in these playoffs than we've seen. And at Scott Norsey says, saving it for the playoffs, you peasant. Peasant. Is peasant is that an insult now?
I don't know, but we're at your house.
Yeah, maybe he's right. All right, what else we got here?
All right, Austin Matthews coming up big in Game 4. Paul Tanazzi, wow, handing him the Conn Smythe after his first 2 shifts where he wasn't invisible in the playoffs ever.
See, that just shows you. See, I can be hard on Austin Matthews, and then on the next guy says that I'm saying that he's a Conn Smythe candidate already.
I don't think you ever said that.
Well, I was praising him.
Yeah, we praised him. He had a good game.
I mean, man, love and hate. All right, last one here. So we keep saying, when are we going to see the Wayne train get into the lineup? And you've been a big on. Hold on, before we go to this last tweet from a half twit, Wayne Simmons Game 6?
Possibly. It's going to be, well, I mean, Lafferty, Aston Reese, they both really got to come out.
I would love to see it. I don't think we're going to see it.
No, I don't think we're going to see it, but it would be amazing.
And this guy, at Murderous Virgin, what a name, says, in regards to Wayne Simmons getting in the lineup, you are the single dumbest mother effer alive. Did your brain just freeze to death when you went bald, you effing half-twit? Or half-wit.
Oh, the half-twit calling you a half-wit.
And I had to clean up that language.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't have to clean up the language of our next guest. We're going to have Toronto Sun sports columnist Steve Simmons, who was at Game 5, break down what he saw live at the game and what we can expect for Game 6. So
let's go to Steve now.
Perfect. Welcome back to the Hockeyverse. We are with Toronto Sun sports columnist Steve Simmons. Steve, let's get right into it here. The Leafs make a mistake not having Michael Bunting in for Game 5?
I don't think it matters. I don't think it was a factor in any way at all.
What do you think was the difference? Like, I read your column this morning, and obviously, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, once again, those guys failed to deliver the knockout punch. They've had countless opportunities at this thing. A lot of people throwing a lot of shade at Justin Hall. Where do you see the main breakdown as to why the Leafs weren't able to, finish off the Lightning in 5?
I think the word finish should begin with start. The game starts at 7:00 or 7:07. They don't start well. They rarely, if ever, have started well in any clinching game they've been in. You go back to last year, Game 6 against Tampa. Last year, Game 7 against Tampa. The year before, Games 5, 6, and 7 against Montreal. The Leafs played great the final 4 minutes last night. How about playing great in the first 4 minutes? How about coming out and barnstorming the other team and saying, this is our building, this is our place, this is our series? They play afraid. And when you play afraid, what you do, especially with a team like Tampa, is you give them hope. And that's why, I mean, it's interesting. We obsess about Matthews and Marner and Nylander. They have so outscored Kucherov and Stamkos and Point in this series that it's not even close. Right. So we're not looking at that. It's who's scoring for Tampa? Eisenman. Anybody ever heard of him?
I can't even spell his name.
Nick Paul hasn't had a goal in months. Before that, Clorne's got 3 goals in the series. Didn't have a goal in last year's playoffs. Like, they're not getting beat right now by the best players on the Lightning, other than Victor Hedman, who's back sort of playing Victor Hedman type hockey. They're getting beat by the rest of the roster. And Cirelli's got 3 goals in the series. Checking center. To me, what the Leafs don't do, and if you go through this whole series, yeah, they're up 3-2. In how many periods have they been the better team? It's not very many.
No.
They've scored their goals in bunches. They scored their goals in bunches to come back in games 3 and 4 and win in overtime. Fortunate, you can call it lucky, you can call it fortunate, you can call it, great that they did that in those times. But I can tell you so many times in the past where I've gone into a building for a playoff game and the building is electric and the place is alive, and the first 5-7 minutes in a Chicago or in a Boston or in places like that, the team just comes out wired. Why aren't the Leafs wired to start games? Now, is that the players that they have? Is that Sheldon Keefe's preparation? Is it organizational softness? I don't know what the answer is. I do know that it's been consistent and that they're now, being 0 for 10 in clinching games is an embarrassment to everyone involved, for Brendan Shanahan on down. And, if they don't get through this now with a 3-1 lead, this is the worst of the embarrassments, I think, or could be.
It's funny, Steve, because I'm hearing you and I hear the frustration, and I'm on Twitter this morning, and you can just read a lot of people are, I don't know if the word is worry or concerned or just frustrated, but the Leafs gave Tampa life. And this Game 5 felt like it was like it was more pivotal than a lot of people were treating it, I guess, or it is more pivotal than a lot of people were kind of treating it. So I don't know, what is your feeling going into Game 6? Was this sort of was this a huge wasted opportunity? And what are your feelings going into Game 6? Because right now it feels like if Toronto loses Game 6, no one's going to be betting on Toronto to win the series.
I don't believe there's anything resembling momentum in playoff series. I think every game takes on a life of its own. And to use a baseball analogy, tomorrow's starting pitcher is momentum. And you go to last night for a moment. The Leafs aren't playing well to start the game. I think at the 10-minute mark or thereabouts, they had about 5 shots on goal. Now, Morgan Riley scores. Morgan Riley's been great, by the way, in this series. Morgan Riley scores 1-0. Now you got something to build on. Now it's like you got a chance to push these guys and to take advantage. There you are. You got a lead. And what happens with leads in the playoffs? The team that scores first wins the majority of playoff games. What happens? 26 seconds later, Tampa scores. That's the kind of stuff I just find baffling with this hockey club. They get you to a point where you believe, and then they pull back. And what happens in Game 6? I don't have a clue. I don't think anyone does. And if you think you do, you're probably wrong. Each game is something unto itself. And again at the end last night, they had some chances. They score the goals with the goalie out, and they have a chance now to tie the game. And really they had no business tying the game, but credit to those guys late in the game that they're able to play with that kind of emotion and desperation. But I think what the Leafs need to do is play with emotion and desperation from minute 1.
Exactly.
Right through the first period, right through the second period.
Yeah.
This is how you win in the playoffs. And they seem to not to understand the concept of playing with desperation to start hockey games.
And as frustrating as the Leafs played, it looked like Vasilevsky was the old Vasilevsky after that first goal last night. What do you think?
They woke him up, eh?
Yeah. What do you think? How do you think the series looks if it's the old-fashioned, old-school Vasilevsky coming back?
Well, that's the challenge all the way through, and that was the challenge from the beginning because nobody expected Vasilevsky to play as poorly as he did in the first 4 games, and for Tampa's defense to be as poor as they were. But I thought they still had chances. If you break down the game in points, there are pucks right around the crease, right around the net. I think Yarncroft had 2 chances where the puck's bouncing, and if he gets his stick on it, it's going in. He misses in both situations. There's, I think, 2 or 3 Austin Matthews really good chances or really good shots. He misses. He stopped Morgan, Mitch Marner on the breakaway, and Mitch Marner, who's absolutely terrific at stick handling and moving goalies left to right and right to left, basically took a wrist shot that I thought was quite an easy shot for Vasilevsky to save. So, yeah, he made the save, but how good a shot was that under those circumstances? So I don't remember him making a lot of stealing goals kind of saves last night. He was solid as can be, but they also had pucks right around him that they didn't take advantage of or finish off plays. And they need, again, look who scores for Tampa. It wasn't Nikita Kucherov. It wasn't Stamkos. It wasn't Braden Point. Those guys, they did a great job on those guys last night.
You know what's funny? It's like everyone's now pointing the finger at Justin Hall, and deservedly so. This guy plays so few minutes, and yet to be in the playoffs with the worst plus minus, I think he's on the ice now for 13 goals against. Has Sheldon Keefe kind of let him in or left him in way too long? Especially when you've got a Timothy Liljegren up there, you've got an Eric Gustafsson. It's not like Toronto doesn't have options. This isn't Tampa where you've got a banged up defense and you're just like, here, we just need whoever we have. What are your thoughts on Hall? Is it kind of misplaced anger, or are you blaming him for A, the penalty kill, and B, for really kind of, like you mentioned, a bunch of nobodies scoring against Toronto last night?
Well, I don't know if you were in Tampa last year, Mike, or not. I can't remember. For the one of the games in Tampa where they started Justin Hall and gave up a goal in the first minute of play, and I was sitting beside Scotty Bowman, and Scotty Bowman turned to me and said, "Why are they starting their sixth defenseman?" and I didn't know. So after the game, I asked the question and worded it probably badly. I said, "Why are you starting your worst defenseman?" And of course, that took off on Twitter and wherever else as me being the evil, crazy person. Well, guess what, guys? All the people who were screaming at me then, what are you saying now? Because the score right now at Justin Hall on the ice in this series is 14-2.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
Luke Shen has been on for one goal against. Here's the problem that Sheldon Keefe has. He doesn't have enough quality penalty-killing defensemen. And Justin Hall is a reasonable shot blocker who does a good job or a reasonable job killing penalties. So that gives him that ability to have him there. What I would do if I'm him tomorrow night is I would go 11-7. 11 forwards, 7 defensemen. I'd bring Timothy Liljegren or Gustafsson back in, and I'd have him playing with Mark Giordano, who, by the way, is not playing very well either. But I'll give him a break because he happens to be Mark Giordano. But in this case, I would not be playing Hall at even strength. I would save him just for penalty kill, and I would play the other pair as sparingly as possible and in pick, choice situations. Joel Quenneville was a master when he coached the Chicago Blackhawks of hiding his fifth and sixth defensemen. He just snuck them in there 10 minutes when he needed to play them in safe circumstances, so they didn't kill him. And I think Sheldon has to be a little more prodigious in how he utilizes the lineup. But I would definitely put Bunting back in, and I would take Lafferty and Zach Aston-Reese out of the lineup and go with 11 forwards and 7D if I was coaching this team right now.
Yeah, it makes sense because we haven't seen Liljegren, I don't know how many weeks now he hasn't played. So to throw him in and just say, you know what, do an adequate job, that's probably asking a lot. So at least you have that safety net of you still have Hall there. I actually kind of like that. You like that, John?
I
was actually going to ask that question.
Tampa's taking guys and they threw Eisenmont in last night. Who the heck is he? Nobody's sitting there saying, "Oh, he's not ready to play." They've thrown Radish in. They've thrown, guys who, Permit this season in. guys who weren't ready to play, but they had to put them in there.
Yeah.
Liljegren actually had, for 2/3 of the season, had a pretty darn good season. And one of his strengths, if you look at the numbers, is he doesn't get scored on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he doesn't do a lot of other things terrifically well, but he doesn't get scored on. And right now, this Hole is getting scored on too much. Or I wrote this morning they should change the spelling of his name on the back of his jersey to Hole.
Yeah.
Justin Hole. Yeah, he's become the Larry Murphy of this team now. I almost feel kind of bad for him because, he's become the whipping boy, and maybe we're kind of putting all the blame on this guy, whereas, it's the playoffs. It's the clinching game. You need your stars to, deliver that knockout blow.
I wrote a column around October, and the column, I think, if I can recall it completely, was if Justin Hole is in the playoffs for the Leafs and playing, that's a problem. They need to get better from that position, and they need to upgrade because he's just not good enough. And he's especially not good enough on the kind of things that make playoff hockey. That drive to the net, that guy coming out of the corner towards the post, the dump in and the forecheck. Those are things that rattle him. He's a big guy who doesn't play physical. So he gets rattled, and then he loses his confidence like he has in the series. 14-2, Mike, is 14-2.
Yeah.
That's the score when he's on the ice. I don't care how many are penalty kill, how many are power play, how many are not, how many are even strength. That's 14-2. I think Victor Hedman's eight goals, 4 and 4 against. You can't have a guy who's 14-2, and you don't think the whole team notices it.
Yep. It doesn't matter how; it matters how many.
Well, it's Game 6. This one feels like a Game 7. I think this one actually is a must-win for the Leafs, just based on their history of Game 7s. I know a lot of people would love if the Leafs can finish this off in 6 because they just don't want to go back to Toronto. I can't imagine the scenario of the Leafs going back to Toronto and winning this. At the same time, they've given Tampa some new life. Are you thinking the same thing? Is this a must-win for Toronto in terms of if it goes to 7, you might as well just say season is done?
No, because of what happened in Games 3, 4, and 5, I don't trust anything. Leafs outplayed in Game 3, came back with a huge comeback, score in the final minute, win in overtime. Same thing in Game 4. They come back from behind, tie it up, win in overtime. Now, last night, they had a chance. They had a chance with a puck sitting right at the goal crease that could have tied. Didn't score. Tampa gets the empty net goal. So it could have been 3 games in a row with the Leafs being outplayed for most of the game, where they had a chance to be tied right at the end. And so, I don't know what's going to happen in Game 6, and I don't know, if Tampa's going to have a 3-1 lead with 3 minutes to go and not be able to hold it. The one thing, and I had this great conversation with Scotty Bowman, who, as you well know, the legendary coach, he's at pretty much every Tampa Bay home game.
Yeah.
He knows this team inside and out. And I asked him, what's the difference between this team right now and this team in other years? And he says it's when they were winning cups, they had Jan Ruda playing beside Hedman. Jan Ruda is now in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
They had Ryan McDonough playing beside a learning Chernak who's gotten better and better. McDonough's now in Nashville, and Chernak is hurt. So of their top 4 defensemen from the past two seasons, 3 of them aren't here now. So you're seeing a different partner with Hedman. You're seeing two different guys as your 3 and 4. Sergachev is a very good offensive defenseman, but not a very good defensive defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
So that defense, which was so strong, 1 to 4, is really just Victor Hedman, who didn't have a good year and had a pretty good playoff so far, even though he's been hurt a little bit. And so, yeah, this isn't the same. This isn't Stanley Cup championship team. This Stanley Cup championship defense, and it's not the Stanley Cup championship forward unit with that Yanni Gourde line with Coleman and Gaudreau. He's now in 3 different cities around the NHL as free agents. And they have the Sorelli line now as their second line. So what used to be the third line for Tampa is now the second line, which means the lineup up front is weaker and the lineup in the back end is weaker. And the Leafs, I think that's why the Leafs were 10 or so points better than them during the season. And they should be better than them in the series.
They should be. And Steve, thanks for coming on the show. We'll see if the Toronto Maple Leafs can be better in Game 6, if they can play a full 60. Like we said, follow Steve Simmons at Simmons Steve on Twitter. Read his columns in the Toronto Sun and all post-media publications. Again, Steve, thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you back at the rink, hopefully for Game 7 if it goes that far. For the Hockeyverse, I appreciate it as well. For the Hockeyverse, this is Johnny Legend and Michael Trikos, and we'll see you next time at the rink.
See you, Steve.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Hockeyverse. If you enjoyed this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing the Hockeyverse to your friends and family. Also, be sure to check out thehockeyverse.com. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter. It's specifically written for you, the diehard hockey fan. From insider news to opinion and analysis, our NHL-focused newsletter will entertain and equip you for the conversations of the day. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is the Hockeyverse.